Hi, folks. On behalf of Time Mumbai, we would like to welcome you all to an interesting session today. With today's section, we plan to move from one-sided webinar to an interesting hybrid concept, which would include a panel discussion with the experts and something new that we are introducing called as Idea Pub. To elaborate on this and take the session ahead, would like to call upon Thai Food Network lead Sanket to take over from here. Sanket.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you all had an amazing Diwali. Back in March 2020, when we reactivated TFN, it was majorly to help mobilize food and supplies for migrant laborers. We reached out to a lot of stalwarts and peers from our industry, and they extended complete support to us. We then took to mentoring and encouraging fellow entrepreneurs through our various CE sessions and reached out to 29K plus food entrepreneurs organically. Now that the industry is reopened again amidst uncertainties and new opportunities, we thought of making our e-sessions two-way instead of just the speaker's highway. Launching our first Idea Pub, a place where peers can come, chill, ideate, validate, resolve, seek. Uh, our speakers for the day accepted to participate in our first ever Idea Pub, and I really appreciate their gesture. Let me introduce our speakers for the day. Alfred Aramban is a first generation serial entrepreneur with a successful track record of founding, nurturing, and operating diverse businesses. Alfred is an acclaimed corporate trainer, motivational speaker, guest lecturer, and a mentor. Alfred has been honored by UN Global Compact. He is a charter member of Time Mumbai, being the charter president of Kivani's Club of Mumbai, and the immediate past president of Antonio Alumni. He's also a member of FICCI and advisor at Indian Documentary Films. Nihar Thakre is founder and partner at Wish Ledges. His practice includes civil litigation, domestic and international arbitration, and proceedings under the IBC. The firm boasts of some of the eminent personalities and fund houses as their clients. So before we go to Q&A, so how we will do this session is in the first half, we'll do a Q&A with Alfred and Nihar to understand more about the fund Alfred is bringing to India and how Wish Legis is stepping up the game for the startup ecosystem. Then we will begin with the Idea Pub, where we will invite startups as per the applications received, and our panelists will try and give solutions to them. Also, very important, during the Idea Pub session in the second half, we would request the peers also to type solutions. Peer-to-peer validation is the best validation possible, people. So please participate. Please be very interactive during the session. If this is the first Idea Pub, we want to party hard today. So moving on to Q&A, Alfred, I'll start with you. While I was framing questions for you, I realized you've worn so many hats in your life. It was difficult to pick where to start from. But the first question I wanted to ask you was, what prompted you to get into catering and cloud kitchens back in the 1980s, when it was not the most sexy business to get in? While everyone would take the conventional cliche route of catering at manufacturing companies or weddings, you chose to cater offshore. And what green shoots do you see for the current cloud kitchen operators? Would love to hear your comments on these.
I have been known to always been ahead of my time. And hopefully when we get a chance to talk to budding entrepreneurs, I would have to tell them that timing is everything in life. So as far as catering out of cloud kitchens, those days we used to call them central kitchens. The idea came to me that Mumbai being Mumbai and real estate space was so much at a premium that I thought it was a waste for commercial offices to have kitchens in their premises. So I went with a solution to them, saying that they could free away valuable real estate space and outsource the kitchen instead, or get food served to their staff on the tables, or if they had a dining room, in the dining room itself. And so that was the main thing. With doing that, I realized, or my objective was to get into a niche area and also assure absolute hygiene of the kind that those days flight kitchens were, asked to have. So as my first central kitchen, I was in the Kambata flight kitchen way back in Juhu. So I hope that answers your question, that I was wanting to carve a niche in my sector.
Interesting. And and what? So I mean, today, as you're aware, so cloud kitchens has become the new word in the food industry. So, what advice do you have for the current cloud kitchen operators, and do you see green shoots for them in the current scenario?
Like every good idea, there will be scores of people who will rush in. So today, obviously, Sanket, you know that there is extra capacity in the market.
Sure.
With big players coming in and investing in capacity. So at some point, the dust will settle, which happens in every industry. So whoever gets into it, like any other business, when the going is good, everybody comes into it, they have to be ready for the downturn while creating capacity. They must be prepared for the long term. And time is now continuously going to be of essence, especially in our times. Continental cuisine and the various kind of diverse cuisine that exists today, people are ready to experiment. In our times, it was mainly staple diet was Indian cuisine, and Sanket, that Indians like their food delivered hot, served hot. Now, our challenge in our times was there was no adequate packing or transportation available. Today, there is technology that helps you there. So increasingly, people will have to take care that food is delivered hot, delivered well packed, and full of nutrition and hygiene is taken care of. Because my favorite line to tell everybody and why I stuck on to catering is that I say that in our business, you are as good as the last meal served. Now today,
Absolutely.
it's becoming even more challenging because everybody is coming up with new stuff every day. And like in the early days, the idiot box we used to say is come into your bedroom and into the living room. Today, virtually you are being bombarded on social media of new offerings, new fads coming in. So it's a big, big challenge. So you will have to be on your foot all the time, especially in your offering.
Absolutely. So next, I wanted to touch upon your your Israel connection. So back in the 90s, you decided to go to Israel. You know, when Israel was more known for their issues with their with their neighbors. I wanted to really know from you what prompted you to take that step and go to Israel back then. And I personally know the amazing work that you're doing in the ecosystem by getting the various technologies that Israel has built in the agri-tech, deep tech, and health tech space. I think some of phenomenal technologies that you're planning to get to India. So if you could, elaborate on them and tell us more about what II Ventures proposes to do with all of this.
Like I mentioned earlier that I have always been ahead of time, and which is a very good thing as long as you couple it with timing, bringing it to relevant days and relevant time, relevant technology, relevant market. So I was 18 years back. I saw Israel as a crucible cradle for startups, and I said that this is where we should go and get innovative solutions to India, because I realized that especially after liberalization in the Indian economy, that technology was no longer the differentiator, because you can now buy technology from any part of the world. So only thing then and even now will make you relevant is how you innovate with what is available, including technology. So the same kind of artificial intelligence, the same kind of Internet of Things, the same kind of hardware is available to everybody. It's a great leveler. Now, what you do with it is the key. So going back a little bit, I hope I've answered that question, because it can go on and on to tell you how I landed there, why I went there. Now, in terms of what is relevant today, I may take this platform to share, which I'm doing with most entrepreneurs today, that don't think that everybody can become a Google and everybody can become a Cisco and everybody can become an Apple. You can aspire for it, but please realize that your feet must be on the ground, which means innovate even on the little things that you can do. You don't have to do breakthrough technology. So for myself, I can share what we are out to do. I am basing all my future movement in IA Ventures on 4 pillars. And those 4 pillars are that I am going to go only for proven technology, which means processes, patents that have moved on from prototype or near prototype and beta. I'm not going to look for anything that is in the laboratory. Not that I don't think that they have a chance, but I want to focus only on proven.
Alfred, you've gone on mute. One second, Alfred.
Okay, I don't know why this is happening. My computer shows I am not muted.
Sure.
Can hear you now. Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Okay, so I will very quickly repeat. I don't know where I got cut off. That I am now deciding on 4 pillars for my future out of Israel. One, that I will only look at proven products and processes, because I don't want to look at anything that is in the laboratory. I want to look at things that have moved on up to the beta stage and which is ready for commercial production. Second, whatever that is, I want to make sure that it has a growing market. The mistake most entrepreneurs make, that they see a market today, but you know what is happening with the rapid change, that market can disappear in 6 months' time or in 6 years' time. So I am deciding now that anything that I choose must have a growing market. Third, timing. That the timing must be right. And fourth, you must have the connections. And when I say connections, I mean you must know people, you must have the network, you must have, just Googling for data is not enough. You have to have the connections. If these 4 things are there, the passion will come, everything else will come. So therefore, we have decided that we are now going to focus only on health, agriculture, and deep technology. Now in health, again, we are being very focused. We are looking only at preventive medicine, because the world is moving towards preventive medicine. Again, in preventive medicine, we're going to focus only on diabetes. Again, because diabetes, India has been declared the diabetic capital of the world. So we are looking at that. If time permits, and for those who are interested, I'm willing to share as to what we're going to breakthrough technology we're bringing in this sphere. In agriculture, we are only going to focus on post-harvest losses to begin with. In India, the post-harvest losses is in lakhs of crores of rupees. What normally we would call literally low-hanging fruit. Farmers are committing suicide because they're begging, borrowing, stealing, and growing, and then ultimately losing the crop for whatever reason. So we're going to focus first straight away and want to be cash flow positive from day one. Thereafter, Israel has got technology which looks at satellite imaging, pinpoint accurate watering. In your 100-acre farm, it can be only one section of the farm that requires an extra nutrient or extra dose of water or extra sunshine. We can to that extent do pinpoint. So that's what we are going to do as far as agriculture is concerned. And then we are creating a brand which will stand for quality, will stand for consistency, will stand for the fact that we are using good business practices and we are being an equitable employer. We'll take care of everybody. So that's the area that we are going to. And in short, if I may summarize and end this particular statement of mine by saying that I'm following 3 principles again. Earlier I gave you 4 pillars. Now I'm following 3 principles. In anything that I do, I am going to first find the market. Second, I'm going to plan. And third, I'm going to then prepare, work actually on the ground. Now you can correlate this with health, you can correlate this with agriculture, and of course a little bit difficult in technology, which means unless I've got a buyer, I'm not going to start planning and I'm not going to grow as far as agriculture is concerned. As far as medical is concerned, India is the diabetic capital of the world. So therefore there is a growing market there already existing. My planning has started now after I have done that. And third, I will start actually now distributing only after the first two has happened. Over to you, Sanjay.
I think if all of us entrepreneurs keep these 4 pillars and 3 principles in mind, I don't think we can really go wrong with whatever we do. Um, so for people who do not know, so Alfred is already contract farming over 1,000 acres of land in India as we speak today. Uh, and I think you will probably need like 30 minutes more to speak about your health tech variables that you're getting. I think they're really interesting. I think we'll speak to Naveen, and I think we should do a separate session on that, because I think they're really amazing technologies that you're getting to India, and the idea that you have to reach the first 50,000 touch points with them is brilliant. So I think we should do that on a separate session. Otherwise, this whole session might just get hijacked with that. Uh, so moving on to sure, and moving on to that supply chain discussion that we were having the other day, Alfred. So you have business interest in the cold chain industry. You own some coal warehouses. Uh, uh, so I would want to hear your comments on the fragmented fragmented logistics industry in India. And of course, there is a lot of movement happening in that industry today. So what scope do you see for the startups in the logistics, and especially the cold chain logistics industry in India?
It's one of the companies that I represent in Israel in innovation. We've been there 17 years when innovation was not a buzzword. And we are in 90 countries of the world. I'm the chairman of the Indian company. We always, whenever we touch upon a client, we always leave the meeting with a gift. So I want to give all time members and all those who are on this call a gift today. And that is a mantra, and that is an idea that I have been working for the last 20, 25 years, specifically towards the cold chain. Bear with me. India, not so much today, but has come out with a legacy of problem with maintenance. You can see that all over, whether it is an air conditioning plant, whether it is cars, whether it is any kind of filtration unit or what have you. We have a bad, poor culture of maintenance. So in cold chain, what happens? It is capital intensive so far. It was far more even before. It's still far. If you traditionally, when you talk about cold chain, you think about linking with trailers, cold chiller vans and containers that are there. Because we have a poor maintenance record, what our drivers used to do, they used to shut off the engine on the way to save on the fuel. And then just when they're entering the city or the destination, they would put it on. Of course, now we've got technology that maps the temperature and gives you a reading as to see whether the temperature was maintained. So during that time, I came up with an idea to avoid this issue. The idea is that we should make it so affordable. In fact, even in my health thing, the 3 mantras that we have, that it should be easy to use, it should be affordable, and it should be convenient. So if you apply these 3 things, even in the cold chain, because time is short here, I'm going to come up straight away with what our product idea is. Our product idea is that we want to have glorified or larger ice boxes. Ice boxes are basically insulated boxes, which 2 people can carry and put into any truck, any pickup on the highway. So imagine a farmer need not own a container or hire space in a container. If he has a 100 kilo produce or he has a 500 kilo produce, he can put it in this ice box that I am going to rent out. Now these are no ordinary ice boxes. These ice boxes will have CO2 cylinders in them. Now you would have already guessed what CO2 is used for. First of all, CO2 is a byproduct, so it is a waste product. It's available. Now CO2 will spray on your product, whatever it is adequately packed in the so-called box, CO2 spray, which is actually what we use as what you call it, dry ice. So whatever you have, if you maintain it at 15 degrees, we have a microprocessor control on the panel, which will ask for the temperature, which will ask the duration of the trip, and it will ask the weight of the product. Accordingly, the CO2 will keep spraying while checking the temperature and maintain the temperature for the entire duration of transit. So you see the beauty. Overnight, our cold chain comes in place, including human organs, including blood, including critical pharmacy. This is the dream that I'm looking for, setting up cold chain in India. I wanted to share straight away with every one of these entrepreneurs who are here to join into this, because every village, every connection can therefore have these boxes, just like Hertz rent a car. The box will come to Bombay, then the empty box gets dropped, and every farmer can have these boxes which will be leased to them. And then the lease can be amortized on the product directly without any maintenance burden, without any tension, and without having a minimum weight or size of cargo that he can do. I hope I have answered your question, Sanket, in a direct business model sense, which I believe dhyan dene ke badle straight away come with a business application.
Well, I'm trying to digest what you just said. I mean, I think this could be path-breaking. I don't know. Have you spoken to the railways about this? I think these boxes should be a part of every cargo in the railways. I mean, there's so much of cold chain requirement increasing, but unfortunately, we still do not have up to the mark cold chain logistics systems in India to transport food, especially across India.
Sanket, I'm going better than railways. I'm talking about a villager stands on the highway and looks at a bus, looks at an open body truck, looks at anything, and he just waves it down and puts his dabba in that. Railway will, you have to fix for the time. You'll have to book the cargo. The farm, like all our buses, passenger buses now carry packages.
Sure.
So I'm talking about harnessing all of that.
This is one of your. I mean, have you guys started work on this already?
Right now the work is here.
Okay.
What I'm tying now is for the CO2 availability. So we have been talking to British Oxygen and few other industries that have CO2 as a byproduct. So like electric charging units, we will have CO2 cylinders now everywhere available. And those will be like those oxygen bottle cylinders that will go on top.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So I would want to move on to my other speaker while I'm digesting this probably a path-breaking idea in logistics. Nihar, I believe like many other funds, you are helping II Ventures as well with various compliances and agreements in India. I wanted to understand from you, what are the important aspects one has to keep in mind while dealing with a company dealing with multi-country clients, and what are some important legal aspects startups should keep in mind? Startups, I feel, need law firms as much as bigger companies do, but startups, I think, have these inhibitions that law firms are out of their league and reach out usually to them when they are already in a quicksand. I would leave the floor to you to elaborate on this, and would love to hear your comments on this.
Absolutely, Sanket. Thank you. I mean, like you correctly said, we are representing Mr. Alfred and his company, and we have the pleasure to represent someone like Mr. Alfred, who's seen so much in life and so much. He's traveled all over. You've seen what he's doing with the Israelis. So I think the most important aspect when you're dealing with someone who's based abroad is obviously your due diligence. So you need to do your legal, your financial due diligence to understand who that party is. And of course, you have your important documents which you have to sign before you explore opportunities. And you have your NDAs, you have your confidentiality agreements. So there are several aspects which one must consider. As far as startups are concerned, we've seen like in India, I believe there are more than 50,000 startups, and we have seen a lot of players in the tech market. A lot of important aspects legally, which a lot of startups should remember or keep in mind, at least when they are getting into or they are starting their business, is first of all is your incorporation, your business entity or your incorporation. Now in India, if you want to have a startup, you can get incorporated as a private limited company. You can get incorporated as a LLP or a partnership firm. I believe your structure should be based on your future growth plans and your, some already have exit plans. So depending on where you see yourself down the line, I think you could pick up your structure. Like for example, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your valuation and then exit and sell it to say a foreign company or any other local player as well, it's better to get incorporated as a company in terms of compliances and other aspects. If there are say multiple founders, if there are more than one founders, you should consider having something like a founders agreement, which is a very important document to pen down ownership, rights, liabilities, responsibilities of the founders inter se. You have your licenses, like you have to be compliant in terms of various licenses. You have your shops and establishment licenses. A lot of startups are in the hospitality sector. So maybe they would have to take your food and safety licenses. So it's very important to stay compliant before you take the step to start. The startups also have been, given a lot of benefits. So you have your Startup India. So you've seen a lot of benefits which have been given to startups. So it's important that they understand these benefits and they utilize them properly. You have benefits in terms of taxes and exemptions. You have self-certifications for labor laws. So I believe for the first 5 years of incorporation, there are around 6 labor laws and 3 environmental laws, wherein startups can self-certify. They don't have to follow what the regular companies are doing. Now, 2 important aspects which a lot of startups sadly ignore. First is your contracts. Now, we've seen a lot of startups, initially to save legal costs, or they think for any other reason, they don't take proper legal advice at the very beginning. I'll say it's very important to take proper legal advice, even if you're signing a term sheet or you're getting into an MOU, because what happens is later on when you enter into definitive agreements or later on if there is a dispute, they realize a lot of important representation warranties are missing or the contracts are somewhere one-sided. The favorable terms are not there. So to avoid all these hassles, it's very important to have a systematic legal advice and a systematic plan to enter into contractual transactions. Now, clauses are very important. Like take an example of force majeure. And look at the importance it's playing in this lockdown and COVID. Like nobody used to take force majeure seriously. So only contracts had a 1-liner, 2-liner on force majeure. Some contracts, so many clients of ours, they didn't have force majeure clauses. But today it's proved to be one of the most important and sought after clause. A lot of people have entered into transactions. They want to exit because of COVID, or they want to, suspend their contractual obligations. But without these force majeure clauses, it's very difficult, and a lot of people have faced this. We've seen a lot of people, inquiring about these clauses. Like another important area for force majeure, I think that people have seen in the lockdown, I think are rental obligations. You have your legal license agreements, so you have your rental agreements like tenancies. Now, what happens is a lot of time these clauses were not really, well drafted, or they were not even present. Now, let's take for example your rents, your tenancy documents. Now, unless the parties have agreed to suspend rental payments under a force majeure event, one cannot ask for a waiver, because you have if it's a tenancy, it's governed by your Transfer of Property Act. Now, there is a particular law given down. You have your section 108, which says if you want to, set aside your payments, the property itself must be destroyed, or there must be a destruction to the property which renders it useless. Now, in a COVID situation, the properties were intact. Only thing is you did not have access to your properties. You could not have your businesses going on. So in such cases, if you didn't have force majeure clauses, it was very difficult for them to be on the same page with the landlord. And the landlords would obviously not give the waiver. Obviously, the laws are different when you have a leave and license agreement, where even if you don't have a force majeure, you have something called as the doctrine of frustration. So there are various aspects which one must consider. In fact, we have conducted several sessions, several webinars only focusing on force majeure. So the importance of force majeure, the invocation, how to invoke force majeure. We were talking about what are the alternate remedies if one does not have force majeure clauses, whether there is a remedy provided by law in the Contract Act, which is your Section 56 or the doctrine of frustration, and how to go about it. So there are different aspects, and this is just one clause. I'm just talking about force majeure, but your clauses per se are very important. Your representation, your warranties, your indemnities. So I will say, even if you have to incur some legal costs at the very beginning, it's very important to consider these aspects. And finally, I think another important aspect which a lot of startups, a lot of MSMEs ignore, and sadly we've seen live examples, is your intellectual property. Now, a lot of startups need to understand, if you're if you're starting a business, you have an idea, your intellectual property is one of your most important assets, and you must protect it. So we've seen, once if you filed your trademarks, you filed your patents, it just helps you better in a lot of ways, including securing funding. Even if tomorrow, if you want to sell it out, if you want to exit and someone is going to take over your business, if you have your IP protected, it's just going to give you a better valuation. Like we've had a real example where one of our clients, a tech startup, they were getting bought over by a foreign company. And sadly, they did not have their trademarks and other IP registered. So they were going on for a few years without any hassle. But when the time came to exit, obviously the due diligence happened, and the foreign company wanted the IPs to be secured. And since they were not, the trademarks were not registered, the valuation just came down by 60%. And I mean, the foreign company said that, okay, we cannot, give you the same valuation as we had initially agreed, and you'll have to take a 60% haircut. So obviously the deal did not go through, and he was getting a good price. It was like crores of rupees, and sadly it just didn't go through. So it's very important to secure these intellectual property rights. And when they went to register at a later stage, the registry came up with an objection that there are similar trademarks in the same classes. So because of that objection, they could not secure the trademark sadly. So that is another aspect which one must consider. It is always important, while you're starting and while you think of a particular name, this becomes one of the important assets. So you must go to a trademark agent or take proper legal advice. A proper search must be done with the trademark registry to ensure that the particular name, the proposed name, is available. What happens is you start with any name, you don't have the registration, and later on one has to change the name because that name is not available. And if you want registration and that name is not available, you have to change the name. Imagine you're doing it for 7 years, 8 years, and then you have to change your name. The valuation just drops. I mean, you're losing business. You're losing valuation, you're losing business. So that is definitely something which one must consider. IP is your most important asset, and that is something you all must remember. Also, I think a lot of times, funding is required. So a lot of times startups, they approach fund houses, alternate fund houses, investment bankers, whatever. They have to share their ideas. They have to share why they should be, getting this funding. They disclose what their concepts are. So at this time, it's also important to get into contracts like your NDAs. You have to get into proper non-disclosure agreements, your confidentiality agreements. So these are some important aspects one must definitely consider, in my opinion. These the startup should keep these 5-6 aspects in mind always.
No, I think I agree with you, and I mean, I've personally experienced, uh, things where startups face issues if they do not pay attention to lawyers in the initial days. And I can personally vouch that, even though Wish Ledges has an office in Nariman Point, but for startups they give Powai rates. I mean, I've got nothing against Powai, but then I mean, because Powai is a startup hub, I've used the example of Powai and Nariman Point. Yeah. So but I think there were some great insights, Nihar, on what all we should keep in mind while opening a startup and operating a company. Because as founders, while we concentrate on the core, that is doing our business, we tend to ignore all the compliances, be it legal or government related, and then they come to bite us back in later in the day, which becomes a rude shock to most of us. So yeah, guys, please be careful of these things, and my suggestion is, please go and talk to your lawyers or CAs and CS and get your things right. It's very important. So guys, I think let us move on to our first idea pub. Uh, so how we're going to do this is, we've got certain people who have filled their forms. So guys who are going to be pitching for core team members or co-founders will get a minute to speak about their idea and a minute to pitch for a co-founder that they are looking at, and what qualities are they looking in their co-founder or the core team member. Guys who are looking for idea validation will get about a couple of minutes to speak about their idea or their query, and in about a couple of minutes, the panelist with us will try to validate your idea or give you suggestions. In fact, I would request Naveen as well to join us in this in resolving problems for the startups. So to start with, Aniket, can we take the following people on mic one by one? So at least from the list that I've got, the first name that I had was Ananya Upadhyay. Is she around?
Ananya is not. I see Chetan here. So if you're okay, we can start with Chetan.
Yeah, sure. Can we take Chetan on? Can we take Chetan on mic? So Chetan, I believe, has an idea around taking Bombay charge to other cities, if I'm not mistaken. So Chetan, over to you.
So I'll just, can I share my screen? Can you allow me a presenter, right, for a minute?
Chetan, it would be better if you can do we'll connect you to the appropriate people to do the presentations. Okay. Because with the presentation, it might just go long. So it would be better if you can...
It's just 2 slides, just to give a flavor.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
You can help me present.
Trupti, is that possible?
Yeah, Chetan, could you try that again?
Can I present my my screen? I just want to show just 2 slides.
Yes, please.
Because I don't have the right. Okay, yeah, now I can. Yeah, okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, now we can.
Yeah, so just a quick about my idea. I'll just take not more than 1.5 minutes. So the problem statement which I am trying to solve is, the Mumbai bites. So I have been working in the IT sector for almost 18 years, and I have traveled all over the world and all the cities in Mumbai. The problem you see is that a lot of Mumbaikars have settled because of the IT background in cities like Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Chennai, and other cities also. But if you see the common problem which they have, they miss the Mumbai charts. And that's the common complaint. And 93.5 Red FM, they have done a survey in both Bangalore as well as Pune that the localized version of all the charts is completely not acceptable to Mumbaikars. And people are looking at and if you see, the market is huge because now the people who are in South India, for example, Bangalore, the local Kannadigas have become in minority, and you see people from all over India, they have migrated in big time in terms of the migration. So the lot of North Indians are there in all over the place, especially Pune, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, as well as Hyderabad and Chennai, and that is a problem. And the survey also shows that they are okay to travel a long distance and pay slightly more money if they get the authentic stuff which they get on the streets of Mumbai. And this is basically the layout which we had planned for the Mumbai chart outlets, similar to something like a QSR restaurant. And these are the kind of charts which people are looking at. They are okay to even shell out the money, and this is what the menu looks like. So this is the idea, and in terms of so I wanted to validate the idea in the first place, and the second part is in terms of where I am, I can talk about it later on when I'm given an opportunity. And I have also prepared a SWOT analysis also, and I also presented my idea in one of the Economic Times business idea competition. So I also have my entire SWOT analysis and the whole market study about with numbers and all, and how will I fund the idea, and how will I have the team, and how will I have a scalable idea? How can I scale it to not just in India but even overseas also? So yeah, thanks for the time, Mumbai.
Sure. Alfred, would you want to take this? And in the meanwhile, all the peers, all the fellow audiences, you guys can also type in whether you validate his idea or not. I mean, and if you want to give any suggestions to Chetan, please go ahead and start typing. In the meanwhile, Alfred, would you want to take this?
Chetan has already covered everything. Yeah, Chetan is if he has done a SWOT analysis, I don't want to sound the threats that he would have covered, but the most important one is entry-level barriers. So for what you're doing, there is zero or almost no entry-level barrier for somebody to copy you, because ultimately people will be led first by taste, then by price, and third, in India, standardization. So you will have to shell out a whole lot of money in the branding, which obviously should stand for quality, stand for consistency. For want of a better example, I'm talking about McDonald's. McDonald's is not the best burger you can get, but because you know that when you go to a McDonald's, the consistency is there and the hygiene is taken care of, and most often they're very, very competitively priced. So if you take care of these three things, the sky is the limit. So there's no rocket science in that.
Thank you.
Chetan, we would also want to get you. I think, I don't know if Harish Neotia is also here in the webinar, because even he had filled the form. So Harish is doing something in your, your chart space and kind of standardizing the chart, and he's made some e-machines. So I think offline I will connect both of you. Maybe both of you could see synergies with each other.
Perfect. Yeah.
And also, I mean, I'm sure you would have kept this in mind while creating this idea that so while charts does amazing in most parts of India, and there is no dearth of people eating and loving chart, but a lot of times you will see that when you take a specialty dish of one city to another, there is excitement for the first quarter or two, but then people will start, again flocking towards the more local food there. But of course, I mean, you're targeting the non-Kannadicans there. So, I mean, I think that's obviously not an issue. We will connect you to Harish anyways on this for you. Is Harish here in the chat room?
Yeah, Harish is here.
Can we quickly take Harish on camera, because he'd anyways fill the form.
Harish is already on camera and he's unmuted.
Yeah, hello Sanket.
Hi Harish. Yeah, you. I think you were seeking a co-founder or a core team member for you yourself. So if you would want to, in a minute, speak about your idea and what you're looking at.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Harish, founder of ePanipuri Cart. We are incubating at IIT Kanpur. We have developed a automatic dispensing machine to serve Panipuri, IoT enabled, that can be operated by mobile app remotely. So we are operating this machine through our mobile app, and first ever time we have introduced this type of dispensing machine in street food. So we are taking live counting of the panipuri being served by the machine. We can operate machine on off. Machine is being operated in two modes. First one is operational and second one is for cleaning automatically. So all those functions are GPRS enabled and can be operated through your mobile app. We are serving almost 28 recipes through our machine, and our spices comes in paste form that is auto dilutable in the machine itself. So we are focusing on minimizing human interference in sort of preparation and serving of panipuri. Currently we have installed 3 machines. Our final product is in market, and till this December end we are getting customer feedbacks, and from January onwards we will start our commercial production. Almost 15 orders are in hand. Over to you, Sanket.
Do you want to speak about what qualities are you looking in your core team member, and what kind of a core team member are you looking?
Currently, we are looking for co-founders especially in operational and business development profile, and specifically coming with some fund also, so that we can get our smooth operation.
Sure. So Harish, what we'll do is we'll connect you with Chetan offline, since Chetan is trying to do something in a similar space. And in case you need any other help, just let us know offline. I'm sure all the people in the audience have heard your pitch, and if somebody pings us to kind of connect with you to explore opportunities of becoming a co-founder with you, we will connect them to you anyways.
It will be great. Thanks, Sanket.
Thank you, Harish and Chetan, for your time. So moving on to, there was a form filled by Hardik Manik about some concept of taking Bade Mian to different cities. Is Hardik around?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, hi. Hi,
Hardik,
Sanket.
please take
Hi,
it.
Alfred. Hi, Nihar. Thank you for taking the time. So the first question is, are you all familiar with Bade Mian in Mumbai? I assume you are because you're based in Mumbai.
Sure.
Why would this concept not have scaled up to other cities in the current format already? I mean, in the sense that since it's so successful, I'm just surprised that the current owners of Bade Mian haven't attempted to scale this up. And if there is potential for it, can somebody else take this up? Especially in my context, I'm based in the UK. I think the margins would allow me to do this a lot easier, and there's a lot of acceptability for Indian food, and because of the familiarity and also because of the diaspora.
Got it. Alfred, you want to go first?
The first question we have to ask is whether Bade Mian is willing to get into any arrangement to lend its name, its recipe, and endorse the brand. That will be the very first step, which is what Nihar also spoke indirectly about IP. So we can say the brand is a kind of IP. So his secret recipe, secret ingredients, and whether he's willing. And if he's willing, then what are his terms? Whether he's going to get involved in the operations, he's going to be involved only in the quality, or he's just going to kind of lend his name. So that will be the key. On the other hand, this is a session, an ideation session, so one must speak your minds out. That versions of Bademia are available everywhere. Um, it's a matter of taste, who likes what. I am not running down Bademia at all. In fact, I am a frequent visitor to Bademia myself. The question here is why Bademia? And the point to be crossed is whether Bademia is willing to want to go everywhere. Just like
Yeah,
our
sorry,
Java
if I may come in, the concept is Bademia. I'm not looking at a franchising option or something. I think it's easy.
Sorry, I got you wrong.
Yeah, no, that's sure. I'm sorry, I should have clarified that before. But because I think in terms of replication of what is there, I don't think it's too difficult. There are enough and more, people who can get the recipe right and do it right. But I'm just surprised, given the success, why would this model not have gone, a lot bigger?
Just requires somebody like you to do it, are they? It's a winning recipe. It's a winning offering. One has to just pick it up.
And in terms of
Absolutely.
your
And,
thoughts on, is this something that can work only for the evening time, or you think it's got a market even for daytime?
In fact, so Hardik, I'll add my 2 bits to your question on.
Sorry, to answer your question of the time of the day, India being a tropical country, at least in the Bombay region, it's in the evenings when it is relatively cooler that people venture out, and also just before their sundowner and their drinks. So
Correct.
that's the reason. Otherwise, in clubs, gymkhanas, and restaurants, including Bademia, is offering it throughout the day, including lunch.
Correct.
And to add to what you asked, Hardik, so I think every city in India has a couple of these legendary local heroes. We had this similar question on, why can't we get someone from Bombay to a Bangalore and a Delhi, or why can't we get someone from a Lucknow to a Bombay, Pune, and a Bangalore? So in fact, we were, without taking names, we were talking to this legendary outlet in Lucknow, which does about 5 lakhs a day of sale from 4 outlets that they run there. And in fact, interestingly, the owner's also very interested in coming to Pune and Bombay and Bangalore and stuff like that. So, but it's just that they are very, since we deal a lot in frozen food and are manufacturers of certain ready-to-eat frozen food, we also kind of have the expertise to, kind of standardize stuff for them and get them to various cities within India and out of India as well if required. But the owners of such brands, they usually are a little old school, and it becomes very difficult to convince them to kind of go to a contract manufacturer and share their recipes, despite the fact that there is an Indian NC in place. So that is one obstacle that we see with these local heroes. Otherwise, I mean, we're trying to speak to a couple of local. I mean, we've not spoken to Bademias as yet, but we've spoken to one really awesome brand in Pune who are doing phenomenal in Pune with 18 plus outlets. We want to see how we can take them outside. We're speaking to some brands in Lucknow. What I see is that, maybe someone very trustworthy will need to kind of, it's not very easy to explain to them. They're not the new age entrepreneurs. So yeah, I mean, we're trying to figure out a way to get into their circle of trust and explain to them that, we are trying to do more good to them than to do good to just us by taking them to other parts of the world, or at least other parts of India. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, if you can convince, sure, go ahead.
Two follow-on questions. One is, in something like this, I think the standardization which Alfred mentioned is possibly quite difficult to achieve. There's even within the city, there'll be people who say this Bademia is better than the older one, and vice versa. How does one kind of overcome something like that? And second is, my thought is to create my own brand. As much as I'd want to have this kind of IP coming through from one of the established brands, but because I don't see too much value in that to the extent that only people from Mumbai might know about it and nobody else, then what was the point of kind of trying to build that IP in any case?
Sure.
As far as standardization is concerned, Manik, technology is available to you, food technology that can standardize to a great extent, and automation helps you to keep it consistent. And of course, it has to be coupled. Any one of this has to be coupled with training. So standardization, as Sanket said, technology today is amazing. You can, and then you have to identify the critical ingredients that go into that decide actually the consistency, and technology can come in there. It's a way.
Yeah, exactly. So to add to what Alfred said, so I don't think that is difficult. Standardizing the recipes is not the difficult part. But I think, I mean, if you want to make your own brand, I think you can probably just say that inspired by Bademia's rather than saying that, a Bademia concept or something like that. And then you can go and create your own brand. And I think in a country like UK, something like an Indianized roll could be like an all-day meal.
Yeah.
Like an on-the-go meal. I think it should do really well there.
And in terms of your perception of it being, good for delivery, because again, it is reasonably lends itself well to kind of a takeaway / delivery concept. But I think some of the fun is you're consuming it there in that atmosphere. So how does that, in your mind, that trade-off, is it something that will be a big thing? Because obviously in the current year that we've seen, factoring in delivery or takeaway is a must to do.
Absolutely. So I think you'll have to be a little more careful about the flatbreads that you use. So whether you should use a Malabar paratha kind of a thing versus a Rumali roti, or maybe your manufacturer could add certain FDA approved agents which do not allow the flatbread to absorb too much of the liquid during the transit. So these kind of things are possible. If you do like a little bit of research, or you work with the right food technologists, I'm sure you'll be able to crack this model. It's not going to be as difficult as you think it is.
Thank you.
I think if there's any more question, you can take it offline with us. I think we'll move on to the next person.
We have Pamsi here.
Aniket,
Yes.
You here?
Hi.
Yeah.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Alfred. Hi, Nihar. And hi, Sanket.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So my problem statement here is looking at a common man, like wanting a personal car is not an issue. But the problem arises while paying a fixed monthly payment or capital payments or insurance, maintenance, etc. against its daily depreciation or the annual depreciation, even when it's idle most of the time. So my idea is giving a self-drive vehicle, like a free-floating kind of model. You can pick anywhere, drop anywhere under city limits or operational zone, and you can use it as a pay-as-you-go model. We can also include carpooling, as in we can, if we are looking at a lower income group, we can use carpooling as well to bring down the cost to the general public as well. So coming to how it is managed, like the availability and the drop off, and the user can just walk off under, if it is under 500 meters radius, or he can also book a request for a doorstep delivery. So we have a standardized hatchback fleet completely, and we don't have any option to choose a vehicle. So the customer to customer handover, etc. and all. So when it comes to the new normal of shared mobility in a post-COVID era, we give the temperature gun is provided inside the vehicle, and the user has to upload his temperature on the application, and the next user will be able to see the previous users or the cleaning guys who has done the cleaning process, temperature of him, and the pictures from the previous user as well, to be sure that the temperature is normal and the car is clean and all. So coming to the number of vehicles required, when it comes to Mumbai, it's around 1,200 vehicles required if it is 3 square kilometers or 5 square kilometers of vehicle if we calculate around. So how can we, looking at this concept, it is a huge capital intensive concept. So here in future, we wanted to reduce the fixed cost to variable cost based on by creating a new platform of investment, wherein people or a group of people can buy a new vehicle in tie-up with us and put it up on a platform. We pay them a monthly rent. They can also use a platform like a regular car, like use the regular cars on and the entire platform, and in the month end, they would the payment to them would be adjusted accordingly. In the end of agreement, they own the vehicle. It is same like renting your house on from some other city. So the future prospects involve, as in the car rental industry, the competition is so high, and using the same fleet for longer years is not admirable or logical. So here, after 2 to 3 years of using the same fleet, the car is refurbished and moved to a sister brand where it is rented to freelancers, cab drivers for using it as an Ola, Uber, etc. Yeah, I've done the SWOT analysis and business model canvas and all. So this is the outline of all the entire idea.
Sure. Alfred and Naveen, would both of you want to take this? Alfred, would you want to go first?
It would be very interesting if you have done a SWOT analysis, then it helps us not to talk about what you have already considered. But since I do not have that with me, all I can say is such model exists in the world, and today technology has just made it so much more easier. And the fact about checking of temperature and the hygiene, sanitization, that I would think it's just a temporary issue just now. And covering it is a smart thing to do, because it would have otherwise blocked the entry just now. The question of putting car owners to the pool, actually it's a modified form of many people investing in cars and giving it to drivers, independent drivers, sometimes in 3 shifts to run. So the only difference will be that you as a corporate approaching them and giving them some further assurances. In terms of most concerns about vehicle owners is the uptake of the car and the maintenance of the car and the depreciation. There is of course legal and insurance issues that you need to cover on that. And obviously you have identified correctly, Ola, Uber are your immediate competition in terms of pricing. So you'll have to check your pricing should not only be attractive, but cover the hurdle of the fact that he doesn't have to park the vehicle. In a city like Mumbai, parking is a major issue, which Ola and Uber takes care of it. So when it is self-drive, you will have that as a major issue. So I'm sure you would have covered it in your SWOT analysis. And as the city is moving now, there is going to be huge parking charges involved. That's going to come in, restrictive and cost going to come on the parking side. So the model exists. The question here is,
yes,
how do you do it for various cities?
Yes, sir.
Naveen, you want to put your thoughts?
No, I think we'll have to do a little more homework, because the general thought is that people are moving away from owning vehicles in the future. So if he wants to innovatively kind of bring this in, I would say what better industry to check with than our industry, because timeshare concept has been with us for a long time. We've seen the Sterling Resorts in India, we've seen Mahindra Group and stuff. So if we can kind of package a vehicle and say, I'll give the ownership to 10 people and give them slots of when they can use their vehicles, and plus at the same time rent it out and stuff like that. If his platform can do that, which could be a web-based platform or an app-based platform, I think there is a chance for further exploration. But generally the feeling is that car ownership is going to be not a thing in the future. So maybe 15 years down the line, I'm not sure if we are all going to own cars and vehicles anymore.
Yes, sir. It's like completely shared mobility there. Self-drive cars and all.
So you've got a business case. You just need to work on it. I would say sit with Alfred and understand how timeshare can happen in this space as well. Nobody has thought of, picking up timeshare and using it to an asset like a car or something like that. So it will be an interesting idea.
Yes, sir, I'll look into it.
Maybe people can start blocking their holidays and vacation times and use the car and stuff like that. So it's possible.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. So, so Vamsi, do you want to add something, or
Yeah, I'm done.
we'll move to the other guy for
actually
now?
looking for some kind of co-founder or something. So if you have any contacts, just please forward me.
Sure. Is there any particular co-founder that you're looking at? I mean, as in with a particular kind of
Yeah.
expertise?
Expertise in the sense, expertise in the shared mobility industry itself. Not as in
Sure.
the funds and all. I'm not looking for any funds as of now.
I think the best bet
Understood.
would be to look at car manufacturers. All of them have got into used cars, refurbished cars. So they are, instead of selling it to second car owners, they will be happy to get into a sharing activity with you and also back you up at maintenance. So almost all manufacturers are getting into that. So they should be a first step.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's great, sir. Yes, sir. I'll look into it. Yeah.
All right, Vamsi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Aniket, I think you said Vikram is coming next, right?
Yes. Yeah, Vikram. So Vikram is here already. You can
Hi,
start.
Sanjay.
Hi, Vikram. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Alfred. Good afternoon, Naveen, and good afternoon, everybody else. I run a company called Hungry Wheels. What we are doing is we are providing caravans which are fitted out with kitchens, which have all the compliance needed from RTO, local bodies, and FSSAI. And you get mobile kitchens ready to operate, the electric kitchens. We provide them on rental, we provide them on a lease to own or an outright purchase. I was just hearing Naveen come up with the idea of trying to put timeshare on the mobility piece. It's something that actually we are exploring with our investors also, whereby 10 brands can probably take one vehicle and probably use it on weekends and ODCs and stuff like that. That's actually what we do. We provide drivers after that, which operate on the Uber model, so you pay as you go. And we have a technology suite which helps you discover demand, integrate into Zomato and Swiggy if you desire. Or we also have an inbuilt location-based marketing tool that you can choose the radius of and market using SMSs, WhatsApp, or social media. And we're just about to start deliveries. We were supposed to start deliveries in April, but thanks to COVID, we have had a 7-month freeze. So we'll start deliveries in December. And we start deliveries in Bangalore in December. We start deliveries in Bombay in February, Goa in March, and Delhi from June onwards. What I'm looking for is idea validation, critical feedback, possible collaborations, distribution partnerships, manufacturing automation, OEM vendors for stuff that is related to the kitchen, which is not our forte.
Absolutely. Naveen, you want to take on this?
Yeah. So you're going to make the caravans available to brands, meaning they'll become extensions of restaurants and other eateries. Is that the idea?
Idea is essentially to build an entrepreneurship network. Okay. So one is it becomes you own the asset at some point of time. So there's an asset ownership model. And for anybody that wants to extend beyond a brick and mortar business to areas where it probably is unfeasible because the demand crops up only 3 hours a day. But for 3 hours, it makes sense to set up something like this. And then you move to another location. So for entrepreneurs, it becomes a venture platform. For people who have existing restaurants, it becomes the extension if they don't want to put in the capex of experimenting with the new location. And thirdly, you can also use it as a cloud. You can be parked in the middle of Nariman Point or in the middle of Bangalore and do walk-in sales plus connect it to the cloud and make money from deliveries and takeaways.
Okay. And you have checked what has happened with the food trucks in Mumbai?
Oh, yes. I came up with the idea in Bombay. I used to be a monetization consultant for the BMC. Okay. There's a whole lot of illegality and jugaad, which does not tick off any boxes. So what we have done is we spent the last 5 years working with the regulator and the regulators, all of them, to figure out what is it that they want us to tick off. And so after everything was done and compliance was done, we started marketing in Jan and then deliveries were in April, but that's a foregone corona conclusion is how I call it.
Okay. So when you say caravan, you mean to say food trucks actually, right?
It is food trucks, but it's a motorless, engineless vehicle.
Okay.
So we manufacture trailers. The company's URL is hungryWheels.in. They're aluminium vehicles, so they're very light to operate. They get towed, so you can tow it with a electric auto. That's the minimum capacity that can tow it. You can go all the way up to a Tata 407 or whatever you want. They take loads of up to 4 tons.
And on what basis do you charge the brands? Is it on a per transaction basis or is it on a per hour basis? How do you charge the brands?
So different models, but based on what you pick. So there's a lease to own where you pay at the NBFC a particular monthly amount, and eventually on a 48, 60 or 72 month basis, you own the vehicle. If you are taking it on a timeshare basis, which is a model that I'm modeling right now, I don't think I've finally arrived at the wherewithal of it, but we need either a financer who will then take on the risk of, because we can't take on the risk, we need a financer who will take on the risk of people sharing it. And also for rental, we have somebody. But timeshare is the idea that we have been trying to work out thanks to a lot of chefs coming to us actually. Thanks to COVID, one of the funny things that happened for us is a lot of chefs started coming saying, boss, can I not start? And my boss doesn't want to give me a job anymore and I don't have a job. And a lot of the people that have also come back from abroad, right? A lot of Indians work on overseas ships, and a lot of Indians are cooks in Sharjah and everywhere else who have come back who are also looking for entrepreneurship opportunities. So that actually threw up the idea of timeshare, but we have not really, I mean, we don't understand the risk, so we have not been able to model it out is how I would put it.
Okay. Have you considered highways versus the cities?
We've considered, so ironically, our first vehicle model that we manufactured was a highway model. We call it a Satellite 2500. It has a 50 square foot storage room plus 2 bunk beds for longer replenishment cycles and things like that. But I think the biggest constraint we have found on the highways is essentially on the highway, what people are looking at is the option that is available on highways today is you get a tender system to take the space out. And that tender system is fairly invisible or opaque in how it awards the contracts. So we've not, we are also very young. So I'm sure somewhere down the line, we'll have to find a place there. But till date, we have not spoken to anybody, no. But we did make a highway model. The second model that we are rolling out is a Cloud 1000, which is a 1,000 cubic feet city model.
Sure. Alfred, you want to add to this?
Yes, Vikram. You know, the idea that I have and I want to share with you, perhaps this platform doesn't give us the time to share to the others. So if you can get offline in touch with me, then I have a model, I think, which could serve as a catalyst and also level your revenue, guaranteed revenue, because you need to look at, when you try with various platforms, you need a leveler.
Yeah.
I think I have an idea that could serve as a good leveler.
Alfred, I'll be happy to get advice. Happy to.
Sounds good. So Vikram, we'll connect you offline with Alfred post this.
Done.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vikram. Aniket, who are we taking next?
We have Ram here, just unmuting him.
Sure.
Hello everyone, am I audible? A very good afternoon to everyone.
Go ahead.
Hi Ram.
Yeah, I'm Ram and I'm from Chennai, and I would like to talk about my idea, which is a platform for spiritual tours that people take all over India. So the problem that I'm trying to solve is there are several hotel booking and food aggregators like Swiggy and Oyo and etc. But there are several thousands of people in India who undertake spiritual tours across the country, and they aren't able to find some hotels. They are able to find hotels over there, but they aren't able to find some priests who can help them with the spiritual work that they are planning to make, or the spiritual rituals that they are planning to make over there, or even in their own city. For example, if someone wants to perform a ritual in a place that is like 300 kilometers from their place, from their native city, they won't be finding some priest to perform that, or they won't be having an idea on what to do. For example, we millennials don't have an idea on what has to be done, or what has to be done according to the particular ritual. So I'm trying to solve this problem by creating a one-stop platform for aggregating all these people like Oyo or Make My Trip, etc. for hotel booking, and also the priests in the local. So so aggregating the priests in the local areas across the country would be our main target, and after which after which I also have an idea to tie up with these aggregators to provide a lodging solution as well, so that it becomes a one-stop platform for all their needs from starting from their home to reaching back home. So that the last mile also gets covered. So this is what I have in mind, and I have been thinking about this, and I've been researching on this for over the past month. And regarding threats, I've also analyzed that marketing would be a biggest threat, because people don't usually approach web portals or plan to seek the help of web portals for these kind of works. So that would seem to be a big threat in the initial stages, and after which it would be solved, because with proper marketing and proper guidance. So this is something that I've been ideating upon, and I'm really looking forward to the inputs from everyone.
Sure. Alfred and Naveen, you guys want to go first?
I could. The issue here is, what initially Uber brought into the market. If you would have analyzed it, what Uber brought was the arbitrariness of a taxi driver. That when you very often before you got in, you had to bargain with them for the rate. In some cities, not in Mumbai, some cities you had to bargain. Second, after you landed in, you felt very unsafe. You didn't know who this guy was, how clean his driver was, how dirty he was. And after landing, also, he would very often tell you a sob story and want to take more money from you. So if you will analyze and take that as an analogy, in most pilgrim towns, you have this problem that, the priest comes thronging to you, or when you go to the priest, there is a lot of arbitrariness, for what you want, and you are never sure whether he is trying to sell you more than what you really need for that particular thing, for that particular event, or for that particular ritual that you want to do. So your biggest selling point, which I'm sure you would have realized, and my reason to tell you this is to bring up the point that you want to remove the arbitrariness and the convenience of choosing. Now the question here is, your biggest competition will be the priests themselves. So for you to aggregate them and to get them to come on your platform, they will want to know what is it that you are offering them that they don't already get. Because now it's a clear question of demand and supply and demand issue. And whether your business model will depend on sharing the revenue with them or taking a commission from them, if I may use that word. So your weak point, your threat is the priests themselves, their numbers and where they are. As far as the hotel and aggregating all of them, again, they come in under the purview of the convenience, one-stop shop that you said. But along with the hotel, say, I'm also giving you the priest. So if you are able to bridge that and check the average rates that is being charged, the time that is taken by the priest, how many of them are available, where are the areas where it is difficult to find them, then you have a winner. The question is, how sustainable is that going to be? Because very often in India, what happens, once you have met a priest, next time around you would recommend that priest to every one of your relatives and whoever goes, and everybody has a mobile today. So isko phone karo, booking karo, yehi priest karega, 20% bachayega. You understood?
Yeah.
So that will be a challenge. So they will break your network and want to go with them, because he has no entry level barrier. The priest is living there, he's sleeping there, he is in the temple. So he doesn't need your infrastructure. He's not dependent on you.
Absolutely.
So Ram, I would suggest you to take a look at how the Tirumala darshans are done in South, both from Chennai and Bangalore.
Yeah.
You sit in the bus, they take you to Tirupati, which is the down. They get you hooked up with the Rami guest line hotels where you go stay for the night, refresh early morning, then go to the Tirumala, the temple. Your time band is already ready waiting for you. You go inside, you come back. So it's like what you're wanting end to end. Now, if you can have similar structures with all the top 20, 25 such places, which is going to be a tough thing, because a Tirupati kind of a discipline will never work in Vaishno Devi, for example. Unless you have to go and track it and disrupt it. So it is possible. I think like what to say, like Abraham said that, if you can net all these priests and there are a lot of middlemen in the pilgrimage kind of market, if you can actually make these middlemen become, what to say, ticket sellers for you and a part of your ecosystem, then this is absolutely possible. And I think what today people require is hygienic travel, hygienic stay, and hygienic, what to say, darshans wherever they go. So, so any complaint that is there today is, these things are very chaotic, they're dirty, they're not managed well, and whatever, little bugs that somebody has is gone by the time they reach the god. So if you can actually sanitize all these portions, then you will definitely have a business.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Naveen and Alfred, for your inputs. I'll really take them into consideration and I'll try to work upon them to get a viable product.
I think in Chennai, Pandian services is there, bus services from Chennai.
Yeah.
Tirupati Darshan tours. Check.
Yeah, yes, Naveen. Yeah.
Thank you, Ram. Aniket, I think you mentioned to me that I think Divya's come instead of Ananya for her pitch.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you can.
So before that, we have Dhruv over here, and then we can take this.
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead with.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Actually, just Alfred, Naveen, Sanket.
Hi, Dhruv.
Yeah. Hi. Actually, the thing is like I'm from Chennai, and we started a cloud kitchen for 1 year. We are running it. So the thing is like everybody is saying like do the cloud kitchen, do the cloud kitchen. It's okay. There are profit, but we gain that profit, and now we are thinking like it's not that much profitable what exactly people are saying. So we have the numbers, and we had a discussion with almost 10 to 15 cloud kitchen owners in Chennai. So it's like you are saving the money upfront, but actually you are going to have to spend that money in marketing a lot. Without that, there is no business. So as of now, we are. I'm thinking to open a subscription like model, like so that we can have that cash flow. Because in Swiggy and Zomato, what will happen like after 10 days they are going to credit. Sometimes it's like 12 days also. So there is a cash flow problem in cloud kitchen business also. So it's like you are making that sale Monday and you're getting that money in on by next Thursday, not immediate after 10-11 days. So right now I'm thinking to okay that our whatever cloud kitchen 2 brands are there, it's profitable, it's running, it's okay. But after getting that profit, I'm reinvesting that money back into the subscription model, like nutrition related food. That's like in COVID situation, lot of friends and people they're asking like, you guys know how to cook. Even I know how to cook, and all the recipes we have designed by us. So we don't have any specialist chefs. So everything standardized, and our chef can produce. We can give them our training like almost 7 days. That's it. So right now I'm thinking to open a subscription model, like almost with that 10, 15, 20 initial customers. We have that, and it's like I'm going to like have that cash flow upfront, like prepaid, like with a subscription they are going to pay us, so that we are kind of have that positive cash and in hand, so we can run that business. So the cloud kitchen, the main problem is like the Swiggy and Zomato guys, they're going to credit later. So to mitigate that also, I'm going to start our own delivery, and we partnering with Shadowfax, and then we are going to deliver the thing with our own like website and app also. So how is that? I'm just going to ask. I
think for subscription based models, I think Alfred would be the best person to take this up, and then followed I will pitch in post Alfred.
It's a simple case of modeling. Put all your parameters in, because from what I hear, and which is very apparent, that you are wanting to offset the delay in the cash flow and the marketing cost. Okay, yes. These are two things, because Swiggy and whoever else is taking commission from you. So now you need to see whether you want to create a platform to sell your subscription model, whether you're going to depend on word of mouth or what, and what kind of savings are you going to achieve. For Swiggy and Zomatos of the world have a platform, have a reach, and so they are giving you the numbers. So it's a simple case of you wanting to balance it out. And I started my talk by saying that there is over capacity today, but everybody says there is money in it. So there's over capacity coming in. So and now that you've seen the numbers, you know you have your in capex, you have your people, and then and everybody is going to all the time look at variation in menu. So you have to keep on improvising yourself all the time. Now in the subscription model, it's in the old days we used to have the tiffin model. You know, maybe you need to improvise there and kind of pass on some discounts to people to come to you. Because otherwise they say, okay, I have the freedom of a Swiggy, I have the freedom of a Zomato. And once I've subscribed to you, then I'm stuck with you. So what is the benefit that I'm getting to come to you?
Now the dish we are going to provide, it's like in the like people who are going to gym and all the fitness related things, and they are going to do all these things. So like our meals will be like whatever, like you, let's for example, like it's butter chicken, but butter chicken will have like 700-800 calories. Also biryani. So we have our own biryanis, and we are going to produce a light kind of biryani, like on a typical biryani, which are having 1,000 calories, 1,000 calories. So we recreated that thing, and we came up with a recipe which is having like 650 calories. So we tested that also in a food scientific lab, that 650 calories per serving. So we are going to.
So Dhruv, sorry.
You're differentiating with your specialized menu, whether you want to call it health conscious menu or whatever.
Yeah, health conscious.
There's no entry level barrier there. Every other cloud kitchen will immediately copy your product and make it available. So it's something that is sustainable. Sorry, Sanket.
No. So Dhruv, like Alfred rightly said, so Zomato and Swiggy have spoilt us for choice. They've made us very impulsive buyers. When we are hungry, we'll order, we'll get it in 30 minutes. So that will be the number one problem with that. Second, so the names that you took, biryani and butter chicken, are very comfort food for all of us Indians. When we think of biryani and butter chicken, we are in an indulgent mood. I don't think we'll really care about eating healthy biryani or butter chicken. So you will need to keep that in mind. In India, perception of healthy sells, not healthy. I mean, it needs to be tasty and healthy. So I'm sure you will keep that in mind.
Yeah,
there are pros and cons with subscription. So while subscription could give you the initial cash flows, but B, I don't see how it solves your problem of spending on marketing, because you'll anyways have to spend money on marketing your subscription models anyways. And what usually happens is monotony kicks in after the second or third month, because pretty much the food will come from your limited 3-4 chefs that you would have within your kitchen. Because Zomato and Swiggy give us an option of eating from probably 300 restaurants from a 4-kilometer radius. Most of us would want to skip that monotony and so health food. If I want something which is which counts calories, I could get that on a Zomato. And then there are certain keto based companies and all which are also scaling up, like Food Darzies of the world. So you'll have to keep all of that in mind before, I think, getting into this model.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, if you have any other queries, you can always write us a mail offline, and we'll be happy to solve that for you.
Okay.
So
thank you.
All right, thank you. Aniket, we can go to the next one. I think Divya is what you said.
Yeah. So Divya Pandey is here. Divya, can you just come on video?
We've lost.
I think he is not able to open his video or something.
No problem. I think there was this person who had raised hand, some Insta green guy. He had pinged us also. I forgot his name. Sorry.
Just give me a second.
Vijay or someone. I don't know. Vijay. So I think let's take that last one, and unfortunately we have to wrap it up after that. And for others who we could not take on camera, we will leave our email IDs here. You can write into the Thai email IDs that Truthi's mentioned, and we will definitely take time from the panelist and try and resolve your issues on email within a week. I think we'll take the last one.
We have Vijay here.
Hi everyone, this is Vijay, founder and CEO of Instagreen Tea. We manufacture inbuilt tea cups. You just pour hot water, that's it. Everything is inbuilt in the cup.
As in so instead of the tea sachet, you made a tea cup with the...
Yeah. So all the cups are biodegradable. The tea is organic. The filter layer is made of banana fiber. So all are eco, organic, and all this. So we had a multiple products, like we had a black tea, we had a green tea, so different varieties. We had a desi chai like ginger tea, masala, coffee, everything. You just pour hot water for hot beverages, for cool beverages for cool water. That's it. Everything is in the cup. And we are exporting to more than 8 countries as of now, more into US and Australia. This is what our product like. And I've been looking for a co-founder who is more into the, we are doing only B2B as of now. Even we are procuring our material to IRCTC and more into PVRs and remaining all. Only B2B, we are looking for a retail market.
Interesting. So are these all tea extracts, Vijay, or they're CTC leaves?
No,
what are they?
They're green tea or CTC leaves. They're completely stuffed in the cup. They're whole leaves like. You just pour hot water for black teas and green teas. And we had the same other concept, like it's a desi chai. You need to peel this thing. Like, this is in a foil. You need to peel it and pour hot water. Everything was stuffed inside the cup, like milk powder, sugar, coffee, and everything like premix.
So your desi chai is also from CTC?
No, it's a powder base.
That's powder base. Okay.
Right.
Okay. That's pretty interesting.
That's an exciting concept.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exciting, and there is nothing that I can add on the product side. The convenience is amazing. The fact that it is actually immediately what comes to my mind, that you should be in every dispenser. There should be dispensers, because in the dispenser, everything comes. All you do is you sell the cups to them.
Right.
Everything else is there, and they choose, and it happens. So what are you looking for actually? A co-founder, you said, right?
Yeah, co-founder and a funding, like till now with a bootstrapping. Funding.
Okay, innovation.
It's a bootstrapping.
Funding. Okay, I thought.
So Vijay, for the co-founder, I'll introduce you to someone who's also doing something in the tea business. He's from the account family. I'll introduce you to him. I will take your email ID and connect you to that person. And for the funding, I think you're on this platform. We'll connect you to. I'm sure Alfred. Alfred himself is an investor, and that is what TIE does. Connect you to investors. We help you connect to investors. So you guys are in this business for how many years now?
3 years old.
3 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And per month revenue is more than 25 lakhs as of now.
I can immediately.
Sure. And how big is your team already?
It's 22.
22 people. Okay. And you already have co-founders, or?
No, a single man show as of now.
Vijay.
And where do you operate out of?
Hyderabad, based at Hyderabad.
Sure. Alfred, go ahead. You were asking something.
Sorry, Vijay, I can immediately pro bono offer you on this platform whenever you want to do innovation session, on ideation session. I will make my time available. And
thanks a lot.
Absolutely excited by this concept, and so therefore I'm on this platform as a gift to TIE Mumbai for this inaugural session. I'm offering you. Whenever you want to do an ideation session on innovation, I told you I have an innovation company.
Sure.
It's happy to participate at your session.
And it's all not about any packaging. It's a word of mouth. We are going like, you feel like that tea taste is very awesome. Like it's a next level, because I can't unless until I courier you some samples to you, then you can taste and you can get the feedback. That's what we are purely looking like.
Are these cups in Bombay? Are they available in Bombay?
No. They are available in Amazon and other platforms. You can ping me the address so that I'll courier a few samples as of now. All
the best, Vijay. I think it's quite an exciting idea. I think we'll get in touch with you offline for all the connects that you've asked for, from co-founder to funding. We'll get you in touch with the relevant guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I think, Trupti, do we have time for one more, or we'll wrap it up?
I think we can take Ajay, if that's okay with Alfred and Nihar.
Sure. Okay. I think
Yeah,
let's just
a
take
quick one.
Ajay and yeah. Okay, Ajay, go ahead. Let's wrap it up in a minute with you.
Ajay, are you here? Ajay, I'm sorry, but we are not able to hear you.
I think I don't think he's able to hear us. I think, Trupti, then let's call it a day.
Yeah, I think that would be the apt thing to do. Thank you so much, Alfred and Nihar. Ajay, we'll take your question offline.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sanket. And thank you, Ty, for this webinar.
I think Naveen is here. Over to my boss.
Thanks a lot, everybody. I think this is a good beginning. And from the interest, I think let's do this quite often. We can also bring in more folks. Alfred, thanks a ton for giving us your time. Nihar, you as well. I think Nihar, with you, we will do a separate legal clinic because a lot of people have questions which are separate, and that will need an in-depth. It's no more a validation, but I think a legal clinic will give them hardcore answers to some of the questions. And Alfred, I think let's build this out a little more, Alfred, so that we can take many more questions during. What I would suggest, Sanket, from next time is we directly dive into Q&A. Let's curate about 20 such entrepreneurs questions and start asking people.
Absolutely. I think it was very overwhelming to see the first session. I think some really awesome ideas that we heard of. It was, I think like all of us anyways, love chilling in a pub. I think we should do this idea pub more.
True.
Yeah.
And what I would also suggest is that, just because of the current situation, we are doing this digitally, but we would love to do this, really in a pub. So once things start off, folks, we will do it. That doesn't mean other people from other cities can't join.
Yeah.
We can kind of incorporate their questions digitally and answer them as well. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and thank you very much, Alfred, Nihar, Sanket, as always.
Thank you so much.
And folks, have a good Christmas, have a good New Year. Unless Sanket kind of interjects and does something before that, we'll be seeing TFN next year.
Thanks, Naveen. Thanks, Sanket. Thanks, everybody at Time Mumbai. It's been my pleasure, and I look forward to participate in future.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you, Nihar.
One last thing, folks, that please do not forget the largest summit globally, which is our TiE Global Summit. This is the largest entrepreneurial summit starting from 8th of next week. So the 8, 9, 10. This is an absolute fantastic platform. So I would request all of you to register. Registration is absolutely free. It's a mind-blowing event. We've got close to 300 speakers and close to 700 mentors. The entire TiE community of 61 chapters across 16 countries have come together to put this. So do attend, do find your place. You will definitely find a lot of networking opportunities on the platform. So thank you all. See you soon. And please do write in all your comments, suggestions, and any other questions you have for the panelists today. And we will definitely get them all answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're just letting this open in case anyone wants to write anything or save the chat. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Sanket, when would you like to do the next session? He's gone or what, Sanket?
Let me check. Yeah.
I would suggest, there are many more questions, right? Try and do this next week itself before we close for Christmas.
Okay, we can do that.
See, today is what? Today is 4th, right? Either on the 11th or the 18th. Maybe do it on the 18th again and just only do pub session. No more panel discussions and stuff. And aim to get about 20-25 questions in.
Okay, done. We'll pick up, and the people who have not got their questions answered, they can write to us.
Sure.
I've left the email ID for them.
Sure.
Thank you so much, guys, for writing. Please go online and show us some love on social media. We really appreciate your messages and feedback. Just keep that coming in.
Sure, Ritesh, participate in the next event. Write to us right away.
Aniket, we can close this in the next 2 minutes.
Sure.
Oh, people are still coming in right now.